The hydroponics bay of Research Station Kepler-7 hummed with quiet efficiency, its artificial suns casting warm light across rows of Earth vegetables and experimental alien flora. Jackson Rivers preferred the solitude here, away from the constant chatter of the main corridors. As the station's lead botanist, he'd spent the last 3 years cultivating not just plants, but a sense of peace among the growing things. Today felt different, though. Something was off about the atmospheric readings in Sector 7, where he'd been experimenting with bioluminescent moss from the nearby moon of Thesha. The sensors showed irregular oxygen fluctuations, as if something was breathing in patterns that didn't match the plant cycles. Jackson made his way between the towering growth columns, his worn boots silent on the metal grating. The moss glowed softly in its containment units, pulsing with an inner light that reminded him of a slow heartbeat. But there, behind the largest cultivation tank, he caught a glimpse of movement that definitely wasn't plant life. He froze, his hand instinctively moving to the communication device on his belt. Then he heard it, a soft whimper, barely audible above the hum of the life support systems. It sounded distinctly, afraid. "Hello?" he called out gently, crouching down to appear less threatening. "Is someone there?" The whimper stopped abruptly, replaced by what sounded like panicked breathing. Jackson waited, his patience honed by years of coaxing stubborn seedlings to grow. Finally, a tiny voice emerged from behind the tank. "Please don't hurt me. I know what your kind does to mine." The voice was musical, like wind chimes in a summer breeze, but heavy with terror. Jackson felt his heart clench at the fear in those words. Slowly, he set down his data pad and raised his empty hands. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. "I'm Jackson. I take care of the plants here. Are you injured?" A long pause. Then, gradually, a figure emerged from the shadows. Jackson's breath caught. She was perhaps 2 feet tall, with skin that seemed to shift between pale green and warm amber depending on the light. Her hair cascaded in waves of what looked like living petals, and her large eyes held the deep purple of twilight skies. She wore garments that appeared to be woven from flower stems and leaves, clinging to her delicate form like a second skin. She was beautiful in a way that made his chest tight, but she was also trembling like a leaf in a storm. You're Verdani," he breathed, recognizing her species from the xenobiology texts he'd studied. The flower people, as they were sometimes called, were known to be peaceful traders who rarely ventured far from their garden worlds. Her eyes widened in surprise. "You know of my people?" "Only from books," Jackson admitted, settling more comfortably on the floor to bring himself closer to her height. "I'm a botanist, I study plants and growing things. Your people's relationship with flora is legendary among my profession." Something in her posture relaxed slightly. You study the growing things?" "I do. I help them thrive, keep them healthy, learn from them." He gestured to the garden around them. "This is my sanctuary." She took a tentative step forward, her bare feet making no sound on the metal grating. Up close, he could see that her skin wasn't just shifting colors, it was actually covered in microscopic petals that responded to her emotions, currently showing muted tones of fear and uncertainty. "I am Nira," she said finally. I was on a trade vessel that docked here. I wanted to see the human gardens I'd heard whispered about. But then the airlock sealed and the ship left without me." Jackson felt a surge of indignation. "They left you behind?" "They didn't know I was gone," Nira said quickly. "I wasn't supposed to leave the ship. My family forbade it. They said humans were." She trailed off, looking ashamed. "What did they say about humans?" Her petals darkened to deep crimson. "That you consume other species. That you destroy growing things for pleasure. That you're giants who crush smaller beings without thought." The words hit Jackson like a physical blow. He thought of all the careful cultivation he'd done, all the hours spent nurturing fragile seedlings, all the species he'd helped preserve and propagate. The idea that anyone would think he'd hurt another being, especially one as clearly gentle as Nira, made his throat tight. Nira, he said softly, I need you to know that's not true. At least, not about me. I've spent my whole adult life helping things grow, not destroying them. She studied his face with those twilight eyes, as if trying to read the truth written there. But you're so large. And the stories. Stories can be wrong. He reached slowly into his pocket, pulling out a small seed packet. These are moonflower seeds from my home planet. They only bloom in complete darkness, and they smell like starlight. Would you like to see me plant one? Curiosity won over fear. Nira nodded, stepping closer as Jackson moved to a small growing pod. With gentle precision, he prepared the soil, placed the tiny seed, and watered it with careful measured drops. It won't bloom tonight, he said, settling the pod under a dim growing light. But in a few days, when the conditions are right, it will open and fill this whole section with the most beautiful fragrance. You handled it so carefully, Nira whispered, wonder creeping into her voice. Like it was precious. All life is precious, Jackson replied, turning to meet her gaze. Especially the delicate, beautiful kinds that need protection to flourish. The petals on her skin began to shift, dark crimson giving way to soft gold. She took another step toward him, close enough now that he could smell her natural fragrance, like jasmine and rain-washed earth. You're not what the story said, she admitted. And you're more wonderful than any story could capture, he replied honestly. A flush of rose pink swept across her petals. The trade ship won't return for 3 cycles. I have nowhere to go. You can stay here, Jackson said without hesitation. In the gardens. I'll make sure you have everything you need. You would do that? For a stranger who believed terrible things about your kind? Fear makes us believe things that aren't true sometimes, Jackson said gently. What matters is what we choose to believe when we learn better. Nira looked around the thriving garden, taking in the careful arrangement of plants from dozens of worlds, all growing in harmony under Jackson's patient care. Then she looked back at him, this gentle giant whose hands could nurture the tiniest seed into bloom. I think, she said slowly, I would like to learn about moonflowers. Jackson smiled, feeling something warm unfurl in his chest like a flower opening to sunlight. I'd love to teach you. As the artificial suns dimmed to simulate nightfall, Nira found herself a comfortable spot among the soft moss beds, no longer afraid of the human who had shown her such kindness. And Jackson, settling into his desk chair to plan the next day's gardening schedule, found his thoughts returning again and again to twilight eyes and skin like living petals. Neither of them knew it yet, but in the gentle sanctuary of the botanical gardens, something more beautiful than any moonflower had begun to grow. The diplomatic wing of Kepler-7 had never hosted such an imposing guest. Marcus Chin adjusted his translation headset for the 3rd time, reviewing his notes on Nexary customs as he waited in the station's primary conference room. The crystalline beings were notoriously difficult to negotiate with, and this first contact meeting could determine whether humanity gained a powerful ally or made a dangerous enemy. The door chimed, and Marcus looked up to see his guest enter. His carefully prepared opening remarks died in his throat. She was magnificent. Standing nearly 7 feet tall, her body was composed of what appeared to be living crystal that shifted between deep sapphire and silver as she moved. Her face, while clearly alien, held an angular beauty that reminded him of carved gemstones, and her eyes blazed with an inner light the color of electric storms. Intricate patterns of darker crystal traced across her shoulders and arms like ceremonial armor. I am Zara of the 3rd Resonance, speaker for the Nexary Confederation, she announced, her voice carrying musical harmonics that made the room's walls hum sympathetically. You are the human who claims to seek understanding between our peoples. Marcus stood, offering the traditional Nexary greeting he'd practiced, hands pressed together, head bowed slightly. I am Marcus Chen, cultural anthropologist and diplomatic liaison. I'm honored by your presence, Speaker Zara. She regarded him with what he hoped was surprise rather than offense. You know our customs. I've studied what records we have of your people, Marcus replied carefully. Though I'm sure there's much more to learn. Indeed. Zara moved to the far side of the table, her crystalline form refracting the room's lights into dancing patterns on the walls. Let me be direct, Marcus Chen. The Nexari have observed your species' expansion across this sector. We have seen the ruins you leave behind on worlds you've colonized. The word carried a weight of accusation that made Marcus's stomach tighten. I understand your concerns. Do you? Zara's voice sharpened, her crystal body flashing with red undertones. Your people strip worlds of resources, displace native species, terraform entire ecosystems to suit your needs. You are a plague of consumption that spreads from star to star. Marcus felt heat rise in his cheeks but forced himself to remain calm. Losing his temper would only confirm her prejudices. Some humans have made those mistakes, yes. But we're not all the same. Many of us work to preserve and protect the worlds we encounter. Pretty words, Zara said dismissively. Your own station sits in the heart of what was once a pristine asteroid field, carved up for your convenience. The asteroids were lifeless rock, Marcus protested. And we've used the materials to create something that supports diverse forms of life, including the botanical gardens that house species from 12 different worlds. Trophies of conquest. Sanctuaries for preservation. Marcus leaned forward, his passion for his work overriding his diplomatic caution. Speaker Zara, I've spent my career studying how different species can coexist. I've seen the beauty that emerges when cultures learn from each other instead of destroying each other. That's what I hope we can achieve here. Zara's crystal form had settled into a cool blue, her stormlight eyes fixed on his face. You speak of beauty. What do you know of beauty, human? Your people create nothing that lasts. Everything you build crumbles within centuries. Not everything beautiful has to last forever, Marcus said quietly. Sometimes the most beautiful things are temporary, a sunset, a song, a moment of understanding between strangers. Something flickered across Zara's crystalline features. Poetry will not disguise the destructive nature of your species. Then let me show you something else. Marcus activated the room's holographic display, bringing up images from his research. These are recordings from the Kepler-7 community gardens. Look, there's Jackson, our botanist, working with a Verdani trader to cross-pollinate species from both our worlds. And here's the market district where 12 different species trade goods and stories every day. Zara studied the images, her expression unreadable. Propaganda. Personal records from my own observations, Marcus corrected. I document cultural exchanges, not propaganda pieces. Look at this one, a human child learning Altarian music from an elderly trader. The trader said it was the first time in 50 years anyone had shown interest in the old songs. Despite herself, Zara leaned closer to examine the hologram. Marcus caught a subtle shift in her crystal patterns, curiosity breaking through the cold skepticism. Your people have children here, she asked. Families, yes. This isn't just a research station, it's a community. Children, elders, artists, scientists, traders. All living together, learning from each other. And when resources become scarce? When conflicts arise? We work together to solve problems, Marcus said simply. Last year, a solar flare damaged our primary power grid. The Altarian engineers collaborated with our technicians to develop a new crystal-based backup system. The Verdani shared their knowledge of bioluminescent lighting. Even the children helped by rationing their personal energy allowances. Zara's form had shifted to a warmer amber hue. You're saying your people sacrifice for others. I'm saying we've learned that taking care of each other is how we all survive. For the first time since entering the room, Zara sat down, a gesture of equality that Marcus recognized as significant. The Nexari have survived by remaining isolated. We trust only our own kind. That must be lonely, Marcus said gently. The word seemed to hit her like a physical blow. Her crystal form flickered through several colors before settling into deep purple. Loneliness is, not a concept we typically discuss. But you feel it. Zara's voice carried harmonics Marcus hadn't heard before, vulnerable, almost fragile. The Nexari are long-lived. We watch civilizations rise and fall while we remain unchanged. Connection with others is dangerous. It leads to loss. It also leads to joy, Marcus said softly. To growth. To discoveries you could never make alone. Before Zara could respond, the station's emergency alarms began blaring. The lights flickered, and Marcus felt the deck vibrate beneath his feet. Station emergency, came the announcement over the comm system. Reactor coolant failure in Section 12. All personnel evacuate the area immediately. Marcus was on his feet instantly. That's near the residential quarters, there are families there. He was halfway to the door when he realized Zara had moved to block his path. You would run toward danger. People need help, Marcus said, confused by the question. You could be killed. So could they. Something extraordinary happened then. Zara's crystal form blazed with brilliant white light, and she spoke in a voice that resonated through the station's very structure. The Nexari understand duty to one's own people. But you speak of duty to all people. It's not duty, Marcus said, surprised by his own honesty. It's love. These people are my family, not by blood, but by choice. The light in Zara's crystal form pulsed, and Marcus suddenly understood. You're not just a diplomat, are you? You're an engineer. Among the Nexari, all speakers must master multiple disciplines. I am skilled with crystalline energy systems. The reactor uses crystal matrix cooling, Marcus said, hope flaring in his chest. You could help stabilize it. I could. Zara's form shifted to determination gold. But I would need a guide who knows your systems. Someone I could trust. Marcus extended his hand without hesitation. Together. Zara stared at his outstretched hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out with her own crystalline fingers. The moment they touched, Marcus felt a shock of connection, not just physical, but something deeper. Her crystal form flared with warm light, and he could swear he felt her emotions, fear, hope, and something that might have been wonder. Together, she agreed. They ran through the corridors side by side, Marcus's human endurance matched by Zara's crystalline grace. In the reactor chamber, they found chaos, technicians evacuating while coolant leaked in dangerous cascades. But working together, Marcus providing knowledge of human systems while Zara manipulated the crystal matrices with precision no human engineer could match, they managed to stabilize the reactor and prevent a catastrophic failure. As the emergency lights finally stopped flashing, Zara turned to Marcus. Her crystal form was dim with exhaustion, but her eyes still blazed with that inner stormlight. You risked your life for people who weren't even your biological kin, she said wonderingly. And you risked yours for people who weren't even your species, Marcus replied. I do not understand what happened to me in there, Zara admitted. When I saw you in danger, when I thought you might be harmed. I felt something I have never experienced. Marcus stepped closer, close enough to see his reflection in her crystalline features. What did you feel? Fear, she whispered. But not for myself. For you. For the loss of something beautiful I had only just discovered. What had you discovered? That perhaps the Nexari have been wrong about connection. About the value of opening oneself to others. Her crystal form shifted to the soft blue of dawn. About humans. Marcus reached out again, and this time when their hands met, Zara didn't flinch. Her crystals sang with harmonics that filled the air around them like music. Stay, Marcus said softly. Not as a diplomat, but as yourself. Let me show you what connection really means. I do not know how to be anything other than what I am, Zara replied. You don't have to change, Marcus assured her. Just, be willing to grow. Zara's crystal form blazed with that brilliant white light again, but this time it felt like sunrise instead of lightning. Growth, she repeated. Yes. I think I would like to learn about growth. As they walked back through the corridors, Marcus found himself marveling at how wrong first impressions could be. The imposing, hostile diplomat had revealed herself to be someone capable of incredible courage and unexpected tenderness. And judging by the way Zara's crystal form continued to pulse with warm light whenever she looked at him, he suspected she was having similar revelations about humans. Neither of them knew it yet, but their connection would prove to be the foundation for an alliance that would reshape both their people's understanding of what it meant to reach across the void between worlds and find something worth protecting. The medical bay of Kepler 7 was Finn O'Sullivan's sanctuary at 3 in the morning. Most of the station slept during this shift, leaving him alone with the gentle hum of diagnostic equipment and the soft glow of monitoring screens. As a medical technician with natural empathic abilities, he found the quiet hours soothing, a respite from the constant emotional noise that came with his gift. He was calibrating the bioscanners when the lights began to flicker. Not the harsh strobing of an emergency, but a subtle pulsing that seemed almost organic. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees, and Finn felt a familiar tingle at the base of his skull, his empathic senses detecting something extraordinary nearby. A shimmer appeared in the air near the far wall, like heat waves rising from summer pavement. The shimmer grew brighter, more defined, until it coalesced into a figure that made Finn's breath catch in his throat. She was made of light itself, or at least, that's how she appeared to his overwhelmed senses. Her form was vaguely humanoid but seemed to shift and flow like captured starlight. Where a human might have skin, she had surfaces that gleamed with opalescent radiance. Her face, though alien in its perfection, held features that spoke of intelligence and desperate fear. She collapsed the moment she fully materialized, her light form flickering like a candle in the wind. Finn's empathic abilities hit him like a physical blow. Pain, terror, exhaustion, emotions so intense they drove him to his knees beside her fallen form. But beneath the surface turmoil, he sensed something else, a core of gentleness and healing energy that resonated with his own nature. "Easy," he whispered, though he wasn't sure if he was talking to her or himself. "You're safe now." Her eyes opened, if they could be called eyes. They were swirls of silver and gold light that seemed to contain entire nebulae. When they focused on him, Finn felt a jolt of connection that went deeper than his empathic gift had ever reached. "Please," she said, her voice like the sound of solar winds through cosmic dust. "The shadow feeders, they're coming. They hunt my light." Shadow feeders? Finn's medical training kicked in, even as his empathic senses tried to process her alien emotional signature. "What are they?" "Parasites that consume life energy. They've been hunting my people across 3 star systems." Her form flickered dangerously, and Finn could feel her strength ebbing. "I am Kaya of the Luminari. I may have led them here. I'm sorry." "Don't apologize for seeking help," Finn said firmly. He reached out instinctively, then stopped. "Can I touch you? I'm a healer, I might be able to help." Kaya's light form pulsed with surprise. "You would risk contact with an energy being? Your physical form could be burned, or worse." "You're hurt," Finn replied simply. "That's all that matters." Something in his tone must have convinced her, because she nodded weakly. The moment Finn's hands made contact with her light form, the world exploded into sensation. He felt her pain as if it were his own, deep wounds in her energy matrix where the shadow feeders had torn pieces of her essence away. But he also felt her amazement at his touch. Unlike the parasites that had hunted her, his contact was healing, soothing, somehow compatible with her energy-based physiology. "Impossible," Kaya whispered. "Physical beings cannot safely interface with luminary essence. You should be dying." "I've always been different," Finn murmured, his empathic abilities allowing him to map the damage to her energy form. "I can feel what others feel, understand their pain. With you, it's like our frequencies match." As he worked, using a combination of his natural empathic healing and the medical bay's energy manipulation equipment, Finn found himself drawn deeper into connection with Kaya. Her thoughts began to blend with his, showing him glimpses of her world, a realm of pure energy where beings of light danced between stars, healing wounded spacetime and nurturing young civilizations. Your people are healers too, he realized. We are the gardeners of the cosmos, Kaya confirmed, her form growing brighter as his ministrations took effect. We tend to the wounds left by wars, help damaged worlds recover, guide species toward harmony with their environments. And the shadow feeders? Her light dimmed with remembered pain. They are our opposite. Where we heal, they consume. Where we create, they destroy. They've been growing stronger, more numerous. My people, so many have been devoured. Finn felt tears on his cheeks as her grief washed through their connection. I'm sorry. That's unimaginable loss. You truly feel it, Kaya said wonderingly. Not just understanding, but actual empathy for beings you've never met. It's how I'm wired, Finn said softly. Sometimes it's overwhelming, feeling everyone's pain. But with you, it's different. Your emotions don't hurt me. They complete me. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Finn understood something that changed everything. The connection between them wasn't just healing, it was transformation. His empathic abilities were evolving, becoming something new through contact with her energy-based consciousness. Finn, Kaya whispered, I can feel your loneliness. The isolation that comes with your gift. You've spent your life feeling others' pain but never sharing your own joy. There wasn't anyone who could understand, he admitted. I understand. Her form began to pulse with rhythm that matched his heartbeat. Among the Luminari, we share everything, joy, sorrow, wonder, fear. But I've been alone since the shadow feeders began hunting us. I forgot what it felt like to have someone truly know me. I know you, Finn said, his hands still glowing with the strange energy that flowed between them. I know your dedication to healing, your grief for your people, your fear of the darkness that hunts you. But I also know your strength, your compassion, your incredible capacity for love. And I know yours, Kaya replied. The healer who carries everyone's pain so they don't have to bear it alone. The man who risks everything for strangers because he cannot stand to see others suffer. The medical bay's sensors began chiming urgently. The temperature was dropping rapidly, and shadows seemed to be gathering at the edges of the room despite the bright lighting. They found me, Kaya said, terror spiking through their connection. The shadow feeders. You have to run, Finn. They'll drain your life force just for being near me. I'm not leaving you. Finn's voice carried a conviction that surprised them both. We're stronger together. I can feel it. Dark shapes began materializing around them, beings of anti-light that seemed to absorb illumination itself. Where Kaya was radiance and warmth, they were void and hunger. Finn felt their malevolent presence like ice in his veins, but his empathic connection to Kaya allowed him to understand something crucial. They're not just parasites, he realized. They're wounded too. Corrupted by pain until they can only consume instead of create. Finn, no, Kaya pleaded. You cannot heal them. They're too far gone. Maybe I can't heal them, Finn said, his hands blazing with the combined energy of human empathy and Luminari healing power. But maybe we can show them another way. What happened next would be talked about on Kepler-7 for years to come. Finn and Kaya, joined in perfect empathic harmony, reached out to the shadow feeders not with violence but with understanding. They offered the parasites what they truly craved, not life energy to consume, but connection to end their isolation. Most of the shadow feeders fled from this offered compassion, too consumed by hunger to accept healing. But one, perhaps less corrupted than the others, hesitated. In that moment of hesitation, Finn and Kaya's combined essence touched its core of pain and began, slowly, to transform the darkness back into light. The process left both of them exhausted but exhilarated. As the last of the shadow feeders retreated into the depths of space, Finn and Kaya found themselves changed by their shared experience. "You're still you," Finn said wonderingly, studying Kaya's light form, "but you're also more solid somehow." "And you're still human," Kaya replied, her voice filled with amazement, "but you're glowing." It was true. Finn's skin held a subtle luminescence now, and his empathic abilities had evolved beyond simply feeling others' emotions. He could sense the life force of every being on the station, could feel the connections that bound them all together in an invisible web of consciousness. "What have we become?" he asked. "Something new," Kaya said softly. "Something that bridges the gap between physical and energy-based life." "Are you afraid?" "With you?" "Never." Kaya's form pulsed with warm light. "For the first time since the shadow feeders began hunting my people, I feel hope. Not just for survival, but for something beautiful growing from the darkness." Finn pulled her close. Somehow, impossibly, she felt solid in his arms now, warm and real despite being made of living light. "We'll face whatever comes next together." Together, Kaya agreed, her radiance enveloping them both in a cocoon of healing energy. As they held each other in the quiet of the medical bay, neither fully human nor fully luminary but something wonderfully new, they felt the future opening before them like a flower blooming in starlight. Their love had not only healed their individual wounds but had created something unprecedented, a bridge between species that existed in entirely different states of being. And in the growing web of connections across Kepler 7, their bond added another strand to something larger than any of them yet realized.